Warning: the Gel Blaster toy shown in this video could be mistaken for a real firearm. Do not take gel blasters into public spaces or it will likely be treated as real by authorities. Gel blasters are classified as toys in Queensland regulations, however this may be different in your state or territory. Be sure to check your local laws before buying or ordering a gel blaster. Also, ensure you use adequate eye protection whenever using gel blasters. Stay safe, everyone.
So, g'day boys and girls, welcome back into the shed. Now, obviously just going to cover a quick few things before I do get into the next blaster review. Now the blaster review I'm going to look at today, again, if you look down this area you can probably figure out what it's going to be, although I have definitely hinted at it in a couple of posts on Facebook, Instagram and all those wonderful things. So, a couple of quick points. I have seen a few comments recently regarding cross usage of certain gearbox components, hop-ups, whatnot. Now, most hop-ups for the gel blasters are on the outside of the outer barrel, or inner barrel, sorry, on the end of it, whereas the airsoft versions like AEGs and whatnot, they're all generally internal. Now, I'm pretty sure that the reason for this is the actual projectile on these is soft. If you were to have it on the internal, it would either break or shatter and whatnot. You can't actually take the force before it will go down the barrel. So, obviously I'm not an expert in physics on that regard, but I'm pretty sure that's why ours are on the outside. Generally speaking, most of them, especially if they're designed to fit on an inner barrel, are going to be pretty well usable on anything. You might just have to trim down the end of your blaster in order to make it fit and work, and then do some testing on which ones are better. Now I'm going to start getting some in as soon as I get a bit more coin behind me, and I'll start using them, and I'll definitely give you my recommendations on which ones I prefer. Now, the one that I used to use on my G36 V2 that was built up by the wonderful Alan down in New South Wales was a MIG V1 from Chainsaw. Now it worked quite well, although I don't necessarily like the idea of the grub screws that connect into the inner barrel, because after a while, in order to get it to sit firmly on the inner barrel, it actually starts cutting into the inner barrel, and after a while it's probably going to cause issues there. But it worked well, so that's fine. I do use it occasionally for a few other blasters I have. However, the one I used on my M4 for a couple of videos, which you haven't really been able to see because it always keeps breaking on me, is a non-adjustable one, and it seems to go quite well. So don't think that you need an adjustable one in order to make your blaster work. Moving further along, a couple of friends of mine have managed to get their hands on the new M249 gel blasters that have a Gen 8 gearbox. I've had a look inside, including a photo that a friend of mine has said. As soon as he got it, he pulled it apart, and it is just a plain old Gen 8 clone, so all your Gen 8 boxes should work in there. Should. I'm not 100% on that because I haven't done it myself, so do take that with a grain of salt, but it all looks pretty good. Otherwise, they feel pretty good, and after this review, that'll be the next one I'm definitely looking at doing, so look out for that hopefully soon. We've also, another big thing for the channel in general, just hit 500 subscribers as of yesterday, so I'll get to that in a sec, but thank you. Thank you all of you. Cheers for the support and the fact that you're enjoying what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing it, going to try and do more and more and better stuff as I can. Obviously I am limited because I do work full time. That's why my videos tend to be 1 or 2 weeks apart generally, is because I just don't have time with a full-time job to get in and do it and release more commonly. So there's not a lot I can do about that. I will try and make it better and better as I go, because obviously if I can't release constantly, I want to release something that's good quality. I'll try and play that game. Now that is obviously an ongoing thing, but will stick with me. Once again, any criticisms you have, definitely throw them at me. I'll take it under advisement because I'm not an expert, and it's up to you guys. If you guys don't like it, you won't watch it, and that's going to make me sad panda. So, move on with that. Now, it is a Friday afternoon when I say this, so I am going to have a nice Pepsi Max because I'm not driving anywhere and I don't have anything to do tonight. Some good Pepsi Max. And we'll get straight into the next review. So obviously if you've looked down, you'll probably figure out exactly what it is. I've definitely hinted at it because I am a fan of the shape, design and whatnot. Even though they have limitations, I still enjoy them. So the review we're going to be doing today is going to be a little bit different, because not only are we going to do a review, but we're going to do a comparison as well at the same time. And the ones we're looking at today are your Bing Fang MP7s, the old version and the new one. So before we jump straight into section 1 and close-up look, I do want to just give you this heads up. I'm going to primarily focus on the newer one because it's the one that my reviewer are probably directly interested in. However, as I go, I'll reference where the similarities and differences are between the old one and the new one constantly. And the reason why I'm doing that, beyond just the fact that you guys are probably more interested in this one than this one, is quite simple, and that is that if you have a look at this overall, so I'll just put that back on, they are almost exactly the same except for a couple of minor details when you get up close and when you start working into the mechanics of how they operate. So it's there's a lot of similarities. So I'm not going to bother going through both independently for that exact reason. I'll just go through the new one and I'll tell you where the differences and similarities lie. First things first, these are not nylon, they are plastic. However, they are still fairly solid, so it's not all that bad. Nylon's not the be-all end-all of everything, but that is definitely part of it. Now, let's get into the close-up, and again, kind of look at the new one. So, new MP7, starting at the business end, you do have a nice little flash hider that comes with it from standard. Again, same as the old one. You get this one. In fact, the reason why a lot of this is probably the same, it's the same manufacturer, and I guarantee you that these are probably made in the same factory. So there's going to be a crap load of crossover there, just to be aware. Not a lot, not all though, because of the internals. We'll get to that later on. So yeah, so you do have a little flash hider here. Just pops straight in over the inner barrel. So the inner barrel comes all the way out to there. Let's get that a bit closer for you to see. Use my hand as a backdrop because my lighting has failed on me. Don't buy cheap Chinese stuff. He says while holding a cheap Chinese rip-off of an AEG. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, so that just pops straight in like that. It's quite firm, so it just sits in. Now this front panel here, inside there is actually where your battery goes. It goes just in this top section right here. In fact, you can see a couple of holes there. That's where the battery goes. I'll show you how to put that in later. But that front cover there is that entire cover panel. Moving further along, we'll go straight to the top. Now you do have a Picatinny rail that goes from the front to the back just here. And usually with these you do get a couple of little flip up iron sights that just sit like that. So a little peep sight at the back and your main irons at the front. If you flop these down like so, you can actually see down those as well. So you don't have to have them up in order to make it work. It's just an option. Be careful adjusting these though, because when you loosen these Allen key bolts in order to get them to move, the entire thing is going to want to fall apart. So be very careful on that. It kind of surprised me when I first did it on the old one. I was aware of it this time, so that's why I managed to salvage it, because one or two little pieces that you need will fly off into the random unknown and you'll never find them again. So just a heads up on that. Moving further along on the front end, you do have a couple of Picatinny rails on the front, so it's almost a quad rail style setup. So you do have your two on the side, one just here, and it's probably about 8 to 10 centimeters long, maybe not quite 10. Same on the right hand side, they're both exactly the same. Again, it's all plastic, no steel, no nylon, but it is definitely firm with a couple of screws in there so you can actually remove them if you wish. And you do have one on the bottom that you can just see. I'll try and go there, you go, just see there. Now, with this, you do also get this nice little front foregrip. It's not the most side to side, it's not the greatest, but it is nice that it's there. I mean, I wouldn't go reefing on it because you are going to rip it off, and it just folds up like so you can use it either or. Generally speaking, once you have this front cover panel screwed in, this thing cannot move any further forward. It can't actually come off, so that's not a bad way to deal with it. But personal preference is always king. Moving further along, you do notice that there is a couple of black bars just here. I'll try and get you a bit closer. So you see that shiny bit right in the middle there and on the other side? Those are actually your stock rails. So this whole stock is adjustable. I'll get to that in a bit, but be careful when you operate it, because if you're holding there and you're trying to push it in, and I'll show you why that's important later on the old one, you're actually going to jam your finger because these aren't exactly smooth cut at the end. So be careful of that. Moving further along, you do have the little Bing Fang logo just there, because why not? And across the back of the actual body, you do have a cover on the back end side of the stock, and you have a couple of fake fire selectors. So on the left hand side just there, I'll try and turn it so you can see it, yep, just there, just molded in, and the fake safety. Those two things do absolutely nothing. However, on the right hand side in the third little groove just there, there is a cool little switch. That's your on off switch. So yeah, be aware of that. It won't fire unless that's turned on. We'll get to that again at the end. Now, something that's cool on the new one compared to the old one is there is a mag prime, and it's this little switch just here on the right hand side of the body of the blaster. So I'll try and get a bit closer there. There's not a lot of movement there, so that's it. It's very touchy, but it won't just activate on its own because it is quite stiff. So I'll show you that in the basic operation, but that is part of it. Now, back at the end, you do have this molding here, which on the real one is actually a charging handle. Now, obviously that's not a thing here, so that's cool. But you do have a couple of hoops just at the back there and there for a sling attachment point, and again at the front. So you could put a little sling on this, and that way it can just fall to your side. You do also have these two little clips. So you've got one just there, and also just there. Now what they do is they let you pull the stock out. So you lift them up and the stock will fall out. It does have 3 settings. So that is fully extended, quite a long little stock. Now you can go anywhere in between. Be aware that if you lift it all the way up, it will pull all the way out. So don't go like this expecting it to catch like a lot of the M4s. It won't do that. So you can set it, but you can set it to whatever size you like, depending on what you're going to do, and it gives you a cool little bit of control. As for the actual buttstock itself, they are metal rods, so they're quite stiff and solid. However, the butt section is just plastic. None of that, it's flat, so it's not the most comfortable, but generally speaking, this blaster is not one that you're going to be putting a lot of force into your shoulder, so it's actually not that bad. You don't really notice it. Through the t-shirt, it's nothing. So now I'm going to talk about a very big difference between these two, at least on the outside. There is not many. There's probably only really 1 or 2, and this is going to be the main one. Now, if someone's looking to sell you one of these physically and you can have a look at it and they're telling you it's a new one, there is one simple check you can do to make sure you're not buying an old one and paying for the new one, basically. And that is just here. Now, if you look in the buttstock, just there's a big cavity there. Now, what that is for this back panel. So if you lift that up, it sits nice and flush. Now, something interesting is if you have a look there, the back panel has some texturing. Sorry, just there, and then there's another little nub here. Now that little extension is, if I pull this all the way out for you, if you have a look in there, and there we go, that's a spring retainer. So if you want to change the spring on this, which I don't advise, and I'll get to later on, you can literally access it from right there, but if you don't have any issues, that's also a quick way of accessing. Now on the old one, if you lift up the clips and pull the stock out, now this one I've always had to do with 2 hands. It's been very stiff and a real pain in the butt. But pull that fully out, and if you look there, there's nothing there. So that's one very easy way to tell from the outside if you're looking at a new one or an old one. There are not many differences on the outside. In fact, that's really the only one. The only other one that I have been able to notice is this mag prime. So on the right hand side, because remember there is a switch on the left hand side, but it's just a molding, the right hand side, if it doesn't click and clip over, it's not a new one. Those are the only 2 ways to tell without pulling it apart that I'm aware of. So moving further along, your trigger guard just here is quite large, so even if you've got fat fingers like me or you're wearing big gloves, it's not really too big a deal. There's not a lot of up and down movement, but it's designed to be a slimline body, so it's not a huge deal. To me, it's perfectly comfortable. One thing that I don't really find all that comfortable though is the actual pistol grip. Now, if you have a look at that, it's a bit hard to tell. Now, it does have a little H&K MP7 down there because, you know, the wank factor. It's actually quite long, like this way. I can't get my hand all the way around. Now, granted, I don't have the biggest hands, and as you can kind of just see there, I'm missing half of 1 finger, but we'll ignore that. I can't get my hand all the way around, and it does feel a bit awkward. Now the reason it is so long is because the magazine, it needs to fit inside there, like so. So it does need to be a decent size in order to allow that. I'll get to that in the end, but that's just a personal preference. Now the back and the front, as you can kind of see just there, they're smooth. However, on the sides you do have those textures. It's not great. I'd recommend wearing gloves because it's still a bit slippery, especially when you're running around in the Queensland summer sun like I tend to do because I hate myself. But that's about it on the outside. Like I said, with the old one, it looks effectively the same. There is almost no difference on the outside from the old to the new, except for, like I mentioned, this here doesn't move and doesn't work. It's not a mag prime. and that panel on the back. So with that all said and done, what I'll do now is I'll jump over into section 2 and we'll have a look at the basic operation of the new blaster, and we will have a look at the old blaster as well. Excuse me a minute, just want to have some Pepsi Max. Lovely. Alright, so first thing I'm going to show you here is going to be the magazine. Now, something that is good, and I will definitely note to you here, this is a magazine I got with the new blaster. This is the old version. Check that out, and it fits in just fine. Not only that, but it works. So there is crossover. There is crossover between the old magazines and the new ones. They both work. However, and I'll show you this in a minute, the magazine motors in them are slightly different. The ones in the new ones seem to be a bit more powerful, and I think that's because this has a higher rate of fire in general, so this one has to be a bit faster to keep up. I'll show you what I mean when I get into it, but I'll show you the basics. So if you look at the magazine up the top there, there you go. You do have a couple of contacts and a little feed point for the actual gels to come out in. So your feed door is just on the back, like so. Feed your gels in, screws and feeds up the top here into the gel blaster. Now, like I said, the old magazine is exactly the same and works. So the top there looks exactly the same. So does the side and whatnot. And that's about it. Now, this top section that's smaller, that actually goes into the pistol grip. So you don't see that. All you see is this bottom half just here. And that's what hangs out. So that's a personal preference thing, whether or not you like that. Something to note, these magazines do not have a lot of capacity. A lot of people mention about the UMP45. Again, I hope one day I get my hands on one of those and show you them and do a review, but money. So yeah, so a lot of people complained about that. I also mentioned about the P90 and its magazines and how they don't have a whole lot of capacity in them. This thing is a whole different level, especially because the old one had a relatively slow rate of fire. It wasn't too big a deal. The new one, you empty these things very quickly. Now, when we get to the mag empty test, you'll see just how quickly that happens. So we'll get on with the operations. Now, same as every other magazine with a rear panel door like that, you simply open up the back door and you feed in your gels, like so. Feed until they're full, and we're good to go. Now, I am, for all these tests, using a brand new batch of hardened oranges. I only made them up last night, so they're about as fresh as you can get. They do have a touch of silicone spray in them, although personally I'm starting to think that's not really that big of an increase in help, so I just keep doing it because it seems to make a difference very minorly. Your mileage may vary. Now, so once your magazine is fully loaded, you got to put it into your blaster. Now, obviously, to put it into your blaster, you got to go into the pistol grip, like I mentioned. There's your mag well just there. It does look flared from the outside, however it's not, so you do need to be careful of that, especially if you're in a bit of a rush or being shot at. So you just simply slide it in like normal. However, this one, it's a bit stiff up the top, so if you are finding it a little bit hard to get in just that little bit extra, just give it one last little bump and it clicks in just fine. Giggity. Moving on. So your mag release is that tiny little button just there. The idea being that as you're going, you can click it with your thumb, and it's almost like these magazines are spring loaded, although I think it's just the gravity. They come out on their own, so I'll show you that again. Press the button, comes straight out. Now that's going to come in very handy when you see the gameplay footage, and I'm using that nice little piece of kit down there. But you can look forward to that at the end in the gameplay. So yeah, magazine goes in. We're now loaded. However, we don't have a battery. So like I mentioned, the battery does go in this top front section here inside the actual body. Now, in order to get to it, normally speaking, you would have to take out your flash hider because it gets in the way and sits on the inner barrel. Now, this panel normally has two little screws in, just there and there, like you can see. I've left them out for ease of use in here, but I will show you how to do it. So you take those screws out, pull them out. They're only tiny little mini hobby screws. So there's one of them just there. I'll try and show you that. Yep, nice little baby. You're going to lose them very quickly, as I've done with my old one a couple of times. That's why I don't use screws in it anymore. However, the new one, because of the vibration from the rate of fire, you're really going to need them. So yeah, and then you just put your battery in. It is a standard black battery connection. Now, I haven't changed this over. I'll try and get that a bit closer. There we go. Yeah, okay, let's go that way. So your standard little black gel gun connection, as you can see there. I have not changed these over to anything special purely because I don't have a battery that will fit in here. Now, I've seen someone pull one of these open and they've been able to cut out some plastic and whatnot and make a big battery fit. I haven't had the chance to go in and actually do that yet or have a look at doing that. So I'm just sticking with the normal, awesome quality Chinese gel blaster batteries that you get. You know, those ones that are 100% honest and never lie to you ever or wake up randomly and tell you they don't love you anymore. Yes, I made that joke. No, I'm not sad or sorry. So, pretty simple, small screwdriver, put the screws in, tighten them down. I'm only putting them in now just to show you the basics of it, purely because the vibration when I do the chrono testing and whatnot will, almost lost the screwdriver, will knock it out. So, we're now live and ready to fire. However, like I mentioned, do need to turn it on, and then, sounds lovely, doesn't it? Like I mentioned with the stock, lift those up, pull that back, you've got up to 3 levels of extension. So at the main, most extended point, yep. So that is your most extended point. Pull it any further, it's just gonna come straight out. So that's that. This one's nice and quite light and easy, which is good. Spring retainer in the back if you need to pull the spring out for any reason. I would not be going and upgrading the spring in this, and the reason being is that there's a big hype because this, I believe, uses the same gearbox as a lot of those new P90s with the 370 motor, the small cylindrical silver one. And a lot of the time before they came out, there was a whole heap of hype and people saying that it's a new horizontal Gen 8. And then when Chainsaw got their hands on one, pulled it apart and tried, only one of the Gen 8 gears is the same. The other 3, including the pinion gear on the motor, are different. Now, I don't know if anyone's been able to find a full set of metal gears for these and all that. I'm not sure. So what I'm going to say is do some research before you do anything. Because if you go upgrading the spring and then you shred the gears, it may not be quick or easy for you to get replacement parts in. Obviously, I don't really want to upgrade this. However, if I do find the parts and components, I may do it. I may even just open it up and put an alloy barrel in it and start using a different kind of gel. I don't know. I haven't decided. To be honest, I'm more using this as a sidearm with either the shield or just in general. So I don't really need it to be super powerful. It would be cool to have one that's super powerful. So if you do make one, let me know because I'm very curious to see how it goes. Yeah, so there is that. So other than that, that's about it on the basic operations. Now, like I mentioned, the old blaster is exactly the same in the operations. What I will show you though, something I didn't mention, is the mag prime. So we're all live. So this is the mag primer of the new motor, and this is what it sounds like. Sounds actually quite beefy, and definitely a little bit furious, but still beefy. Now, I'm going to show you the mag prime on one of the old magazines. It does work. However, compare the sound. It doesn't quite sound the same, at least not to me. Now, the older ones, sorry, I had to clear that. The older ones do sound like they're a slightly smaller or slower motor. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I've used my old one quite a bit that the magazine motors are actually getting a bit worn and they're a bit sad. It's possible. I'm not 100% sure. So definitely consider that. Now I have fired full auto with an old magazine in this with a sad sounding motor and it still was fine. It only skipped maybe 1 out of every 14 odd gels. So it's not an issue. You just have to skip a gel every now and then apparently. But anyway, I'm sure you're all thinking to yourself that you're not here to fornicate with arachnids. So I'll get on to the bit that you really care about, and that is the chrono testing. Let's get to it. Once again, as usual, make sure you're wearing adequate eye protection. So you might be wondering why I'm always wearing these. These are actually safety glasses. They're just prescription because otherwise I can barely see what I'm looking at. I'm not as blind as most people with glasses, but it's enough that it's annoying. It gives me headaches. So like I said, make sure you're wearing adequate eye protection. It also wraps around. So first things first, we're going to try the old MP7 just as a comparison here to show you what we were used to playing with and dealing with. You don't get this as part of the MP7 either. That's just a GoPro mount that I used because obviously I make videos. So that's not normally in yours if you get it. So let's see what we get. So we seem to be getting a very, very consistent 212 to 215 feet per second. I honestly didn't think it was that good. That being said, that is only initial muzzle velocity, so that's only the speed as it actually comes out of the blaster. So depending on how well it fires, that sort of thing, it is going to slow down, but it shouldn't be too big a deal. That's good. Yeah. All right, we'll grab the new boy and we'll see if there's any increase or, God forbid, decrease. So just before I kick off with the new MP7, something I just want to quickly remind you of. I have been firing these a little bit just to try and get some gels through the barrels. It does seem to make a difference, lubricating up the barrel a little bit, so that way I'm trying to get as most accurate reading as I possibly can. But this is the new one. Let's see how she goes. I'm not gonna lie, that's disappointing. That's averaging 180 FPS, which is standard M4A1 Gen 8. It is only small, and a few things would probably increase that without having to mess with the motor, but it's kind of disappointing. Rounds per second, we seem to be getting around 33 on average. There was a few there which read as 67, but that's a bit insane, so I don't believe that's accurate. It's about 33 rounds per rate of fire. Pretty damn good. That's actually really good for suppressing. Obviously, the mag capacity is going to stop you from actually being able to use proper suppressive fire, but it is going to make people keep their heads down when you do pull the trigger. I do recommend firing in short bursts, like I tend to do, just to try and be accurate and conserve ammo as best you can. Other than that, yeah, I might actually reload both these magazines and give them another shot, just to confirm those numbers, because that seems really odd to me. Anyway. So I've just refilled the new one's magazine, mainly because I'm a bit disappointed with that number and I want to try and see if we get any better. So we'll go with this first and we'll see how she goes. Keep in mind, sorry, something I should have mentioned earlier, this new one comes standard with an 11.1 volt battery. The old one always came with a 7.4 and yeah, so be aware there is obviously going to be an increase in rate of fire with this one, but we'll keep going. Nope. Average of 180. That time we were definitely averaging more around 185. First one apparently was 200, so it might be something to do with the fact that it's only such a short barrel and the cylinder cycling, I believe it is still, if not exactly, but close to or similar to a Gen 8 style cylinder. Maybe there's something there which is causing it to lose pressure. I don't know. That's kind of a letdown, I'm gonna be honest. But it still seems to go alright, so I'll jump into the old one again just to confirm its numbers, make sure it is actually higher than the new one, question mark. Alright, this is the old one, refill. Yeah, old one averaging anywhere between 205 to 215, even 220 spiking at one point. So what do you know? The cougar beats the teen. I really need to be careful with those jokes. Anyway, let's head out to that wonderful summer sun. Who doesn't love going out there? First, we'll go with the old one. And now, the new boy. Not bad. Let's try further back. 15 meters with the old. to angle up a little bit in order to get it to actually hit center mass of the target. Still hitting probably 70 to 80% of the shots, so I might try this one from 20 meters back. Didn't think I'd have to, but we'll give the new one a go, then we'll move further back. Try with the new one. Yeah, angling up a tiny little bit, probably about the same, if not a little less. Accuracy, I'm probably hitting about 80 to 90%. There's only a few that are missing, so it's doing pretty well, but not a massive improvement with range and accuracy. So we'll move a little bit further back and try both of them at 20 meters. So try with the old one first. We're at 20 meters. So I'm still having to angle up, but probably about the same amount. It's not too excessive, which is good. And other than that, the accuracy is about the same as 15 meters. It's actually really good, all things considered. So yeah, it doesn't seem to be too much of an increase over at 20 meters. Let's try the new boy. Yeah, about the same. Not having to increase elevation in order to hit the target. Accuracy still pretty good. They are flying a bit more side to side, and I'd say that that's down to this one having a bit more power over the old one. But obviously, we'll learn a bit more about that as we go. You know what's next. Righto, let's try the old one, see how long she lasts. It. Not too bad, all things considered. Let's try the new boy. That's a lot quicker, as you can imagine. Obviously, this is running an 11-volt battery. The old one only ever ran a 7.4. I did try an 11-volt battery in my first original MP7, and it instantly shredded a gear, so I don't recommend doing that with an old one. But that's quite an increase on rate of fire. It's going to be interesting.
So far the MP7, at least the new version, is a bit of a mixed bag. I still like the old one for a few reasons, but the fact that it's putting out a slightly higher FPS out the barrel is actually kind of surprising to me. I was definitely expecting the new boy to be a bit better, but it does have fire rate over the top. Unfortunately, with those tiny magazines, it does mean that you're going to need a bunch of spare magazines. Anyway, we'll move on into section 4 and into the gameplay section. Now, this is from the Christmas games that the G3 guys held past weekend, and it was also the weekend where I got shot by everyone for my 500 subscriber video. If you haven't seen that on Facebook or YouTube, check it out, like it, share it, laugh at me, because, you know, that's the best thing to do in every situation, really. Other than that, unfortunately, we did have to cut the day a bit short because there was a big storm rolling in from inside the middle of Australia, so it was coming in to say hi and was threatening to wash us out, so we only got to play for an hour or two at most. Either way, I hope you do enjoy it. It is a bit of a showcase on the limitations of this blaster, but it also helps show it's a good little sidearm, or if you pair it with a shield and you know what you're doing with a hop-up, it could probably be a very devastating combination. Anyway, hope you enjoy.
I'm surprised you didn't nail me. Hit. Nope. Hit. Oh. Woo. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's it. There's still two.
Go! Oh shit.
You guys have this side, yeah? Oh, no, there's someone aiming at me.
How are you out of ammo?
Ammo with that?
I've been firing stop. I think we've got them all, haven't we?
No.
Remember guys, you've only got 3 lives.
Ow, hit. Okay.
Watch out, there's someone that can shoot through the tiniest little gap.
Oh no!
Yep. Yeah, that.
So I hope you enjoyed that gameplay footage. We've definitely rebuilt the field a fair bit more, and I'm hoping to show you more of that in action from the next video I do, which at this stage is going to be the M249 review, so stick around for that. Moving forward though, the blaster, it's good. The lack of ammo capacity is definitely a hindrance, but it does sort of balance it out a bit. I am definitely disappointed that the range isn't really that much better, if any better, than the old one, meaning that you're very limited in how far you can shoot, even compared to other standard gel blasters. So there is that limitation there. Like I've mentioned, unless you're in a CQB area, a bit like ours, you'd probably want to stay away from this as a primary, but it does make a good secondary or a bit of a fun one, especially if you want to dual wield. Grab 2 of them, grab a bunch of extra magazines, and figure out how you can do a quick change system like I sort of did on the Shield, only better because that needs to be redesigned. Unfortunately, I found a few issues with that system, but either way. So moving further along, we'll jump into the recommended accessories as part of section 5 in the final thoughts. I can English very well, ladies and gentlemen. So recommended accessories, I highly recommend 3 or more spare magazines so that you have at least 4. So at the moment I currently have 5 because I have the 2 of them, and it does seem to run pretty well that way. You can keep going for a decent amount of time, even though you have to keep changing magazines. As long as you have a bit of discipline on your fire trigger and whatnot and use it sparingly, you can last through most games without too many dramas. As for, I definitely recommend a hop up, probably not an adjustable one, just a basic one, because it's all it's going to need. It doesn't have a huge amount of power, it's more just to extend the range a bit and maybe even the accuracy. Alloy barrel would definitely help in the long run, but I don't think it's required per se. It's just a case of if you're going to pull it open and do a bit of mods, I'd probably do that first and then see how it goes, because ultimately there's only so much you can do to this gearbox because we don't necessarily have full access to entire gear changes. So with that being said, the other final thoughts, like I mentioned, good fun little secondary, or unless you're going to pair it with a shield, use it as a sidearm, something like that. I'd be very, very hesitant to use it as a primary unless you had a lot of spare magazines and you're also running in a fairly close-in field, like maybe some of the indoor fields down in Brisbane/Gold Coast way. Other than that, it is still a lot of fun and it's relatively cheap all things considered, so it's not necessarily a bad buy in order to just have a fun little blaster or something that one of your kids can run around with. You know, it's easy enough. But that's about all I have for you tonight, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up the review there. Like I said, just recently passed 500 subscribers, so cheers for that. Check out the 500 subscriber video. I'm hoping to have the M249 review completed and uploaded before New Year's, so you can hold me to that and point at me and tell me how bad I am if I don't pull it off, which is entirely possible. I will try my best. I have a few days off work, so we'll see how I go. And yeah, other than that, like the video if you enjoyed it, comment down below if you got any points or any questions or anything you want to suggest. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time.